Hey everyone, it's Types, and today we're going to be taking a look at the current metagame and comparing it to the metagame of the next format, which is Chaos Rising. Chaos Rising, if you're not familiar, is essentially the same as the Japanese expansion Ninja Spinner. Ninja Spinner has a few more cards. I'm not going to lie, I'm not 100% sure they are off of the top of my head, the extra cards. I'm pretty sure there's some extra promos. If I'm not mistaken, these are not the right promos. It would be these promos, potentially looking at maybe adversity insurance here, a cool little tool that's not super good. There is also Mega, or no, this isn't Mega. We got Crocodile EX, kind of cool, though not also super good either. I'd say the best of these is going to be Mega Glade EX here, which is in this set. But, not super good. There is also, I don't think this is in the set. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, though. Mega Slowbro EX. I think it's released a little later, unfortunately. Pretty cool card. An alright card. Probably the best of all those cards I said. As I said, I don't think it's in the set, though. But, those cards will be added to Ninja Spinner to make it Chaos Rising, but it's mostly just Ninja Spinner. First of all, I do want to talk about the major card, the best new card by far, I think, from Ninja Spinner. I don't think it's particularly close. And that card is going to be Special Red Card. Special Red Card is a card that is an item, obviously, and what it does is it says you can only use this if your opponent has 3 of your prizes cards remaining. This means it's going to be late game. Yes, you can knock yourself out through the use of like Dust Store, for example, or Dusclops. That being said, I mean, it's not super good just to pop them for not much advantage, right? If you're, mostly using it to knock yourself out to be able to special red card your opponent, that's not going to be super good. And then also, your opponent could play side deck as well to counter you there. But anyways, what it actually does is it says your opponent shuffles their hand to their deck, or sorry, puts it on the bottom of their deck, and then they draw 3. Remember, it is on the bottom. I like, in my mind, it doesn't change it too much. There's difference between shuffle into their hand, into their deck, and shuffle on the bottom, but it is different than the other item disruptor card, which is Unfair Stamp. If we look at the current metagame, looking at just a handful of random decks here, we see this list running Unfair Stamp in one copy of Judge. Judge is an okay card. I actually recently made a video saying it was underrated, which I do think it is in Standard. I think it should I don't think it's super underrated, but I think it's like a little bit underrated. And that's because it is, going to be the second best hand disruption card that you're going to be able to put into a deck. And then you look at other decks here. We'll pull up Mega Lucario here. Mega Lucario is going to be a bit different here, running. Oh wait, no, this one is running Unfair Stamp and 2 copies of Judge. Sometimes you'll see Max Belt as well. Max Belt can be good, but I'd say is more of a higher highest card. Why is this playing Mega Zygarde? I don't know. Anyways, so you'll see Unfair Stamp in like a Judge or 2. Judge, as I said, is a lot weaker than Unfair Stamp, though. Unfair Stamp is going to disrupt your opponent actually even more than Special Red Card, and I'd say is able to be played at more turns in the game. I'm not exactly sure. Obviously, it'll depend on the game. It can be played presumably earlier, though. But ultimately, it's kind of similar. I mean, okay, Unfair Stamp is a lot stronger because it also draws you a bunch of cards. And I guess I'll pull up one final list. I'll pull up, I guess, Stormy. Sure, why not? This one runs Cape here, but we don't see hand disruption. But, certainly the deck would appreciate hand disruption. I mean, any deck appreciates some amount of hand disruption. And you could see Judge, but as I said, Judge isn't super powerful. You compare it to like the other supporters. Obviously, Low's Determination a lot stronger than Judge in terms of draw. The other ones are a little closer there, but it's certainly not the most powerful setup supporter. So, able to use your supporter to do like boss or like setup or whatever is good, or Wally's there. And then being able to use your item to actually disrupt is going to be super nice there. I don't know if Special Red Card will be in literally every deck in the game. I expect it to be in most decks in the game, though. As a 1 of, probably maybe a 2 of there, looking at it, something like that. I suppose if you're looking to buy cards, this is definitely the card that you will be looking to acquire. And will probably be kind of expensive for its like rarity because it is, very good, right? Ultimately, this card is very good. It's not broken, I wouldn't say. I wouldn't put it in the top 10. That's my prediction of cards in the game post, this set. But I think it is pretty close to that, so that's pretty interesting there. In terms of actually, impacting the game, I don't think it's going to change what's good a ton. I will mention Alakazam here being a deck that, it wants a big hand, right? That's its whole thing. And with that, playing against more hand disruption is going to be obviously bad for you there. That's going to be a little awkward. I don't think it's going to make or break Alakazam, or I guess break Alakazam specifically, because I think it'll still be able to do a lot of stuff it's trying to do. I suppose we'll see. But it's like still pretty good. And this is also late game, so you can kind of set up your board with your Dunsparce and stuff like that to be able to counter it a bit more. I don't know. I don't really play with that much Alakazam, and I play against it some, and it's an okay deck. I'm definitely a bit lower on it than other people though. So I don't think special rate cards going to change the game too much in that regard. In terms of other decks, playing Dronges is going to be good. And generally, you look at like Dragon Ball EX with Draco there being a Drongen card. You look at Pheasant EX, I think that card's going to be a little better. And maybe Meowth EX will be a little worse. I don't know though. I don't think it's going to be a huge thing. In terms of actually being fun to play, obviously this is subjective. Fun to play with, fun to play against. I know lots of different people have different opinions on hand disruption. Obviously, hand disruption can be quite annoying to play against, right? You aren't able to play cards that you want to play, essentially, is what's going to happen there. And being put down to a 3-card hand is disruptive. Obviously, it's not as disruptive as Unfair Stamp and is more disruptive than Judge, although it does put the cards in the bottom. So in terms of getting, you're not going to see the same card, which can be good, but it is probably going to be bad there. And, it changes the odds a little bit. So ultimately, this is going to be, though, pretty disruptive, especially for an item here. I'd say it's the power level, the disruption power level of a supporter, except it's just the disruption, as opposed to like drawn disruption supporters like Iono or Judge or whatever. So ultimately, it'll be a little annoying, I guess, but it's a late game thing that you can see coming. And I think there's going to be more counterplay to than Unfair Stamp. And in some ways, I think it's going to make Unfair Stamp feel more, well, fair there. Currently, Unfair Stamp's just so much more powerful than pretty much any other option you can do at that point in the game, I guess. I mean, it can really hurt your opponent super early on there. While your opponent's still setting up, you can get Unfair Stamp there. So that feels kind of bad. That's not really going to happen with special red cards. It's going to be legitimately a late game card, more of a comeback mechanic style card. Unfair Stamp kind of is like that, but you compare it to like Reset Stamp, and I definitely think Reset Stamp is like much more of a comeback style card than Unfair Stamp there, and I think Special Red Card is going to be closer to that vein. Funnily enough, the other card that it kind of references is Red Card there, the regular Red Card, which is also banned. Like this is definitely not as good, but with the regular Red Card there. That card could be used earlier. This is going to be, as I said, I think a much more fair feeling card. Will it be a little annoying? Maybe. Will it make the game healthier? Definitely, maybe as well, because it will have, more hand disruption being a more like consistent part of the game as opposed to a part of the game that is still there. Which I think hand disruption is in some ways good for the game, so that there are certain things where your opponent can just kind of set up. It can make games pretty much like you're going to win for quite a while, and it can make things a little boring there. But in terms of this, I do think this is going to be good for the game and making the game feel, as I said, a little more smooth in that sense, a little more fair as well. Ultimately, as I said, this isn't going to change the metagame too much. We'll take a look at the Japanese metagame. I will mention as well the Japanese metagame. I mean, metagames just change, right? Well, here we'll look at the metagame. This is what it's looking like right now. We look at pre-rotation, we see Dragapult, Mega Lucario, Alakazam, Mega Starmie, and Zoroark, Rakdos Mewtwo, and Ogerpon Meganium above other. Then we see Festlead, Cynthia's, and Marnie's running at the top 10 there. Obviously, Dragapult is by far the most played deck in the game. You look lower, and obviously it drops off quite a bit there. You look at Japan here. Yeah, we still see. I will also mention that some of these decks are going to be classified a little bit differently. But we see that Dragapult is to the top deck, not surprising there. And then we see Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt, it might be a little bit more popular in Japan, just like in general. And then you look at the Ogerpon Meganium deck, I think is the same as the Arpaliva deck here. None of the same Pokemon represented, but same deck there. You got Mega Lucario, you got Enzor, you got Mega Greninja, which we will talk about. You have Cynthia's Machamp, Minus Grim Style. We see Alakazam lower there. As I said, I think that is partially due to a special red card, but I don't think that's going to be unplayable. We see Rockets, and we see Ogerpon. I actually don't know what deck Ogerpon is. It could be like Ogerpon Clefairy. I assume it's not Ogerpon Meganium, because I assume that's in the Arboliva deck. I'm trying to think if there's anything else it could be. Obviously, Raging Bolt could be, be playing Ogerpon, probably playing it there, but that's Raging Bolt. And then, yeah, it could be Ogerpon Box as well, which is kind of similar to Lily's Clefairy. in some different decks there. There's like slot box kind of decks. It can definitely be a little weird to categorize them. We certainly see a lot of other decks as well, not in those decks being represented there, which might be above 2.5%. I don't really know exactly how that's determined there. But anyways, we see the metagame isn't super different. I could analyze every different like percent change if we look at like last week there in Japan. It's pretty similar. We see Slowking and some other decks in different places. Again, not going to analyze that too much. Again, it's mostly Dragapult at the top there. And there is one new deck, which is Mega Greninja. Ultimately, I do think Mega Greninja EX is, it has the attack Ninja Spinner. Ninja Spinner is the name of the set. It's obviously the most hyped up card. It's going to be a card hyped up by Pokemon and hyped up by Pokemon fans as well. It will be a bit overrepresented and overplayed there. That does not mean it's bad, but I think this is true for new decks just in general. For example, with Mega Starmie EX, I think that also kind of falls into that category. I don't think Mega Starmie is a bad deck, but I think it's maybe a little overrepresented. And when we saw the format first come out in Japan, we saw that Mega Starmie was actually above Dragapult, and then obviously it fell below that, kind of completely fell off, and has come back a little. But anyways, we're not diving into the history here. We're diving into what we're going to see. And as I said, we are going to see Mega Greninja EX here. Mega Greninja EX is super cool in my opinion. It's not super powerful, but it's all right here. It has the ability Deadly Shuriken. Actually, is it super cool? I think it's kind of cool. As you'll see, it has some something might sound a little familiar, and it's maybe not something y'all find super cool. But let's the ability Deadly Shuriken. Once during your turn, if it's in the active, you may discard a basic water from your hand in order to use this ability. Place 6 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon there. And that's pretty nice. You can theoretically use like a bunch of Deadly Shuriken abilities. I kind of doubt you'll be using more than 2. I honestly think you'll be using 1 a lot of turns. There might be some turns you're not using any as well. But ultimately, this ability, it gets extra damage counters on your side of the board. It's not really something that you can stop. I don't. There's a battle cage to stop it from hitting the bench there. And then I'm trying to think if there's some counter to this. Maybe there is. Tell me in the comment section if I'm forgetting something like obvious. I don't think there's a super good counter. I'm sure there's like some weird things out there. But ultimately, Mega Greninja EX here is going to be able to target down your opponent's bench Pokemon, or just do extra damage to the active if they have Battle Cage, or if that's just what you want to do there. But extra damage is always nice. I will say it is a 3-prizer. It's a stage 2, so that's a little awkward. A bit of a liability there. And 350 HP is, it's more HP than really any Pokemon that sees play right now in high quantities, but it's not like absurdly high. Some things will be able to knock it out. Not everything, but definitely some things will. And then you look at the attack here, Ninja Spinner. It's the name of the set in Japan. It's Chaos Rising internationally. And also Ninja Spinner is like a translation, so we don't actually know what the attack name is going to be. Actually, we might. I don't know if we officially know at this point. I don't know if it's been like revealed in English, but it's going to be something like that. It doesn't, matter there. But for 2 water, you do 120, but you can return a water energy if this Pokemon to your hand. And then if you do, obviously returning it, first of all, a water energy to your hand can be good for Deadly Shuriken. And I'll talk about another reason why it can be good as well. But then if you do this attack, does 80 more damage. That's going to be doing 200 damage there to the active, and then 60 snipe with the ability. That's the same as Dragapult. It's not exactly the same as Dragapult, but it's pretty similar. Obviously, this card's not as good as Dragapult in terms of the fact that the ability is kind of cool. It might be a little stronger there. You don't have Dracloak, and you're also a 3-prizer. I think not having Dracloak's a lot bigger of a deal there. Being a 3-prizer is a bit of a pain, but you do have a little extra HP, and I'd say a little more power than Dragapult. You can actually split up the 6 damage counters from the ability, unlike Dragapult EX's Phantom Dive damage counters being placed on the bench can be split up, but they can't be put on the active, so I'd say that's a bit of a wash. No, unintended. I don't even know if there's a pun there, but ultimately it is kind of similar to that card. In terms of actually playing this card, it's a little interesting. You can't use Crispin with it because it is 1 type. I'd say that's... not being able to use Crispin is obviously bad, but the fact that you can use just like 1 type is cool. I will also mention that you can use the Stadium Surfing Beach. That's like a card I guess I'd say is stocks are going up a little in terms of, sometimes I do videos of like cards to get before Chaos Rising. That'll probably be one that I say there because it works pretty well with this, I guess. They don't actually know how many water lines there are going to be. Funnily enough, I didn't actually mention this yet, but with Mega Greninja EX to compare it, really there's going to be 2 builds, I think. There's Dragapult EX and Greninja EX. When I say Greninja EX, I mean regular Greninja EX alongside Mega Greninja EX. Regular Greninja EX is actually fighting. It's kind of funny, and it's a pretty decent attacker. I'm not going to go into it too much right now because I will probably, play it at some point. And then also... I've talked about a lot in the past, so check those videos out. As I said, I will play in the future though, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss those, and also like the video while you're at it. But anyways, you're going to be able to play the deck that way, or play it with a Dragapult EX. And Dragapult EX is really interesting because, well, I think it's interesting how you can play it here, as you look at it with. How am I gonna? Oh, it's just here. So you look at the deck and you see that it's playing New Upper Energy. New Upper Energy was really good with Dragapult EX. It's fallen off. I mean, as I said, you're gonna see Unfair Stamp in a lot of decks, and you want to be playing that card. It's really good. It's like by far the best ace spec. It's a legitimate top 10 card in the game, I would say. Yeah, I think it's top 10, probably card like 7 or something behind Stretcher, Puffin. I'd put it behind Ultra Ball, Pokepad, Lilies, and Boss, and I'd probably say it's the next one. I actually don't know how many I said there. I think, yeah, I said 6. So I think it is at spot 7, maybe. I don't know. I know it's probably on a similar tier to Fez, Badoo, and depending how you group Pull. If you group Pull and Cloak together, I'd say they're rounding that list out. But anyways, New Upper Energy, it's just not as good, right? And so instead, you can now use it back here. And again, we do see special red card, allowing you to free up that ace back there. And this allows you to attack with Dragapult EX. You actually see the deck just running Neo Upper Energy to be able to attack with Dragapult EX. Obviously, you're not going to be using that too much. Neo Upper Energy using that to attack there. If you get the energy knocked off, then that's like bad. You just can't attack with Dragapult ever again. And then if it I don't know, things can happen, right? And you can't use it. It could be prized. You could discard it somehow. Theoretically, that seems pretty unlikely there, but ultimately it can, you can attach it somewhere else, things like that, right? So sometimes you won't have it, and then you just won't attack with Dragapult EX. It's not a huge part of the deck. You could make it a bigger part, but then we see a bunch of water energies here in Mega Greninja EX, and you can attach it, New Upper Energy to Mega Greninja EX as just a way to attack or one energy attachment there. That is nice. Not we have to do all the time, but it'll be something that you probably have to do at some point. So we see Hilda to be able to search it, so that's definitely pretty cool there. And the reason that is good is because, again, obviously it pays in one attachment, but then you can return it to your hand and then reattach it and keep doing that, and just attack with New Upper Energy for the whole game, even if you get knocked out there. It can't get bumped off by Enhanced Hammer. It can be moved to Dragapult EX as well. You can use Dragapult EX and Greninja EX ability in the same turn. You can use Air Balloon to make it a pivot there. Obviously, a lot of different things you can do there, which I'd say are a little bit interesting. I wouldn't say they're crazy interesting, but definitely there is some depth. Definitely something to watch out for as well. And in some ways, this is just another Dragapult build. And Mega Greninja EX will be potentially a deck that is, just pretty similar to Dragapult, which I don't think is what a lot of people are looking for, but it is, I think, what we are going to see some from the metagame, looking at it with, Mega Greninja there being part of it. So I don't think it's going to be a huge deck either, as we saw in Japan in the tier list, or not the tier list, but like the ranking of decks. Wait, there's probably an actual tier list. Here it is. We see Mega Greninja is like somewhere in the middle of here. It's B tier. We have Dragapult in S tier, no decks in A tier, and there's just a bunch of random stuff in B tier. Not like random stuff, but like not super super powerful stuff. In terms of Dragapult's just like very very good there, and so. In terms of the metagame actually changing, I don't think it's anything huge. I do think Mega Greninja will be a legitimately viable deck. There are some other decks from the new set that are interesting, I guess. The other one I've heard the most buzz about, no pun intended here either, is Beedrill, or Beedrill EX, I guess, specifically, which is like an okay one energy grass attacker. To be honest, I'm pretty low on those. If you know my thoughts on Arboliva EX, I just think it's kind of meh, but whatever. That's not for today's video. But yeah, ultimately, you can, we're going to see some change in the metagame. I think the biggest thing is going to be special red card, and that's this thing you need to be watching out for, whether you like it or you don't like it. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section, though. And of course, any decks you're excited for from the set as well. Looking at it, anything I'm excited for would be outside of like the, really good stuff. Oh, I guess there's also Watchog, or no, there's Patrat. Patrat is a counter to Munkidori. That is like worth mentioning. I don't think it's a huge deal, but it is worth mentioning, so I'll mention that there as well. Looking around at other cards, I don't think there's anything else huge, but there's definitely some cards that will see play. Slowking, I guess, also has risen up a little, kind of, sort of, with this new Metagross, which does work with it. Repeat, it does work with it. Someone's like, yeah, that doesn't work. Like, no, it works. Pokemon said it works. It's the same way that it worked with Wellspring Ogre Pontiac, so ultimately, we'll see like some shakeups with some decks and some decks getting some new tools. But anyways, tell me down below your thoughts in the comment section on what you think the meta will look like. If there's anything you think I missed, or in any decks you think I'm underrating, overrating, and what you're excited to play from the new set, and any deck ideas you have for me as well. I honestly really love those because I like playing weird and wacky decks, and good decks if they're good decks that people aren't really talking about. I love to hear that as well. But I hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to like, subscribe. Huge shouts to my YouTube members as well for supporting my channel. It really does mean a ton. But I hope you all enjoyed. As always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.